Hi everyone, I'm Emma. I'm the Digital Practice Manager at Introba in the UK, and I've been in the industry for about 15 years and about 6 years with Introba. So you may not be familiar with Introba, that's because we just rebranded. So we're previously known as Elementa Consulting in the UK and Integral Group in other areas. We've got offices in Canada, the United States, Australia and Serbia as well. So I'm going to talk to you about our 3-day office challenge that we did last year. So coming out of lockdown, we were getting back in the office and we thought, right, this is the opportunity to do something to get us back into the swing of things. We wanted to design the system for a 100,000 square foot office in 3 days. So why? It was kind of, why not? I feel like, especially at stages 3 and 4, obviously redesign is part of it, designs evolve, it's what we do, but we have a lot of chasing our tail at those stages, and obviously that's where overspend is most commonly seen as well at stages 3 and 4. And we just wanted to challenge the status quo. The other thing was that we work with SIBSI on the standard for embodied carbon calculations in building services, so this was another opportunity to build a model that we could use for ourselves to continue our embodied carbon analysis. So before we started, we had some prep work to do. We agreed a team and a strategy. We also agreed time constraints over the 3 days. So we had 9 till 5:30. We weren't working crazy hours. We had an hour lunch break. We agreed on the team. So we have Pat here as BIM coordinator. Hugh was our lead engineer. He's mechanically biased. He did the public health as well. And James, and then myself, I was kind of the QA diary entry person and was kind of analysing the whole thing. We sort of set up diaries to document our assumptions, and we created a 3D model for the architecture and the MEP. So for all the architects in the room, it's not the most beautiful building, but it served its purpose. And we did all the setup prior to the 3 days, as well as agreeing what sheet delivery we were going to have, and also our support mechanisms being we had an electrical engineer that we consulted during the process, and also collating our family library and stuff like that as well. So immediately on day 1, we had a huge influx of information put into the model. We didn't have markups back and forth for each discipline. The team sat on a row in our office, and Hugh produced sketches, basically. So the sketches on the screen that you can see were what the end project is, what you see on the screen at the bottom. So just by agreeing the perimeter, ventilation, and the typical bay coordination and the ventilation, we were able to sit down and agree the routing and how all the other services would coordinate around that bigger kit. So we were really surprised by the amount of information we got in on that first day. The other thing was we were doing the updates to the calculations live as we were modelling. So again, that communication piece. When James, for example, he was looking at the ventilation, he was looking and he saw that the flow rates were too high. He would immediately feed that back and they would tweak as they went. So there was, we still have a hang-up. I feel we're moving away from markups. They still exist. We get really caught up in the back and forth of information between the engineers and the coordinators, or whether the engineers are putting the information in, there's a back and forth in the other way. They need support from the BIM coordinators, so this was really, really time effective. Every day I would do a clash detection against a number of elements in the model, MEP to MEP. And I think the table really speaks for itself as far as how many elements we modelled and the amount of clashes we ended up with. And again, this was just by being together and agreeing a strategy and then rolling with that strategy and supporting each other through it. Again, we've got all these amazing tools that help us with clash resolution, but really we should be aiming for clash avoidance. And the further we get from our main, the further we kind of untangle the strings, as it were, the less, the further away we get from our outcome and the design we wanted to have. So this was our end result. Something I haven't mentioned up till this point is that we actually modelled different solutions on each floor plate, and the reason we did that was, again, for our embodied carbon analysis. We're taking this model to use it to understand the impact or the embodied carbon of each of the elements in the systems as they are as a whole. So we had the AHU vent solution on the roof, we had a chilled beam, and we also had a fan coil solution. And we ended up with over 18,000 model elements over 3 days. So back to the original question, can we deliver 12 weeks of MEP design in 3 days? Not quite, but we were really surprised at what we did achieve. It was really interesting. It was a time-effective process. We did prevent a lot of rework by just getting together and doing it in that way, in that workflow. The BIM coordinators, James and Pat, they felt they'd learned a lot from it as well, just having that more immediate answers, more immediate collaboration and understanding of what they're actually putting into the model, and have a better outlook on the designs that they're doing as a result of that. It forced us to look at our processes head on. So we'd recently overhauled our Revit library, and it's the tiny little things that on a project we think, that family is a bit, it needs tweaking, but we're just going to leave it this time because it's just tiny, let's just do it the long way. And actually, when you do it in condensed time, you realise how much those tiny things add up to the inefficiencies on our projects. It was just really, it was really impactful. I think had we have designed the same system across the whole floor plate, I think we could have done it in less time than that. So food for thought. We did use tools on the project. We had dynamo graphs that helped us with our setup prior to the 3 days. We ran graphs that placed fuse connections for power supplies for equipment. And we had a different strategy for looking at the schematics, which we sort of sampled during that time as well, which was really interesting. But communication is key. And I think after COVID, it's something we really feel getting back in the room was really, really important. I guess that also, loops into the markup thing, which I've already sort of mentioned. I think something that I feel quite passionate about is that when time is spent on a project is as important as how much time. So as a BIM manager, I'm looking, when we win a project, we sit down, we decide how much time is needed for each discipline, how much the electrical, MEP, public health, mechanical, fire, whoever the design team is internally is going to take to do a project. But we don't think about when. And if that process is happening together, it just works better. RCP is king. I think, again, Revit is designed to be systems to be connected, and actually Reba kind of works against that because we're doing less detail at stage 3 and then we're jumping into stage 4. Can we flip it? Can we look at doing the reflective ceiling plans sooner, working with the architects? Can we work closer as a design team to have quick outputs that serve the client rather than, just this end result that we've all kind of worked really, really hard for? Can we take this approach to prove to our clients we need it without fear of deleting? The biggest thing I learned was we get scared of deleting stuff. We're like, we're going in, we're fixing, just delete it and start again, because we've just proven you can design a whole office. Obviously, offices, there's a lot of repetition. Obviously, we're working on a lot more complex projects. But even if just that area of the building, sometimes it's easier just to take a step back and have a refreshed approach. And can the order of our processes, can we challenge it? We have ISO, we have BG6, and they're great. They help us on our journey to the end product. But sometimes we're sharing things for the sake of sharing. Do we need to do it? Can we ask the question? It's better to ask the question than not. So, yeah. Thank you. Does anyone think we have a bit of time? Does anyone have any questions?
Just on the ventilation at the start, there was a spreadsheet. Were you using Revit schedules to do the calculations, or were you using kind of traditional Excel and then bringing back the calcs back in to
Yeah,
Revit?
so the Excel was just, the Excel was just on the screen, and Hugh, the engineer, he was just tweaking it as he went. So we were using Revit in a way to, really it was a comfort to what he was doing. It was side by side. You know, we were looking at the flow rates and the velocities, but it wasn't our primary tool. But it helped bring the two together and provide confidence in what they were doing. Yeah.
And just one other question: clash resolvable and clash avoidance.
Yes.
We're having a lot of issues when we go through that with contractors. You mentioned BG6.
Yeah.
Are you using that as the basis for what means clash avoidance, or how are you setting that out when issuing a model out to the construction team?
Yeah, we follow BG6 closely. I think we've done a lot of internal communication around breaking that down a bit more, as far as really promoting the level of detail that needs to go in at the different stages, but also the order in which things go in, and just getting, the teams to. I think we get a deadline, we get a program from the client, or and it's like, quick, let's go, let's get in there. And actually, you could inform that information just by providing smaller, detailed areas. So yeah, we are following BG6, but I think it's just more about the way in which we add the services to the model and making sure everyone's conscious of it, and understanding the impact that's had on putting things in the wrong order as well.
But did you find, I think BG6 is 5% clash resolvable for design stage. So if you 100,000 elements, you could have 5,000 clashes. Is the contractor turning around and saying that's not clash resolved, and how are you dealing with that situation?
So I think making sure that we don't have the clash-free model status, but also understanding, what's the critical, using the free stages. Obviously, that's a huge amount, but I think, again, it's an education piece on those numbers float around a lot on projects, but actually when you drill it down, a lot of them are approved clashes, they're down to software limitations, and having that conversation like really early on with clients so that, that's understood. And setting lower tolerances internally as well, just to make sure that, we do visual reviews the whole way through stage 3, weekly, internally. But yeah, obviously, it's still a big subject that catches everyone out. Yeah.
Thank you.
Right, thank you, everyone.